The yellow emoji is racist. Really?
Mr. Reagan.
All right, before we start, I've got a great new sponsor for the show, Gold Co. If you want to diversify your portfolio, protect your savings, safeguard your retirement, try investing in gold with Gold Co. Go to MrReaganLikesGold.com or call 844-696-GOLD or click on the link in the description below. All right, so NPR, National Public Radio, which is funded by our tax dollars, and USAID, which is getting defunded, thankfully, and dismantled by Elon Musk and Doge, and the great wisdom of our great leader, Donald Trump. By the way, they posted this article. Well, it was a bit on the radio that they did, but they've also posted an article about it. It says, which skin color emoji should you use? The answer can be more complex than you think. But the tweet that they posted about this says, it's got a summary of the article. It says, some white people may choose the yellow thumbs up emoji because it feels neutral. But some academics argue that opting out of the white skin color emoji signals a lack of awareness about white privilege. This is akin, they say, to society associating whiteness with being raceless. If you're white, you're raceless. In a way, I think that's probably true, right? Because in America, traditionally it was white culture in America, right? But we decided, as a country, as a culture, that we didn't want to be just a white country. We just wanted to be America, right? And everybody's invited. Wherever you're from, you're invited to participate in the American experience. The American experiment, and the American experience, both. And so we said, you know what? We want to live in not necessarily a colorblind society, but a society in which all races are welcome. And therefore, a lot of people kind of view themselves not necessarily as quote unquote white, but just as Americans or as citizens of the world, or just, a person that is living in harmony with all races. But apparently you're not allowed to do that anymore. If you're white, you have to use the white emoji. And if you're not using the white emoji, then you're not acknowledging your white privilege, you racist. All right. So we're going to listen to this. We're going to listen to this radio program here, and I'm going to react to it because I haven't heard it yet. I just saw the headline and the tweet. I want to know what they have to say. So let's give this a listen.
So a lot of times I find myself texting a friend or messaging a coworker, and I want to reply with a simple thumbs up emoji. But it's not that simple, because there's not just one thumbs up option. There's the Simpsons yellow version, and then 5 different skin tone options.
I use the brown one that matches me. I have some friends who use the brown ones too, but they are not brown themselves. This confuses me.
That's Sarai Cole from Berlin, Germany. She's black and originally from California.
Is that like digital blackface, right? I think that was like a thing a while back, right? If you used a meme of like Will Smith doing something, that was considered to be racist because you were appropriating Will Smith or something. I don't know. They're crazy. All right, let's keep listening.
She says she's not offended when a non-brown friend uses a brown emoji, but would like to understand why.
I'm not offended, but why? These leftists crack me up.
I, too, have long been curious and a bit confused by the race politics of emojis. I posted about it on Twitter this week, where I learned clearly this was not an isolated obsession.
This is Heath Rosella in Littleton, Massachusetts. I am 3/4 white, but I'm also a quarter Filipino.
Rosella says he usually goes with the yellow emoji because it doesn't represent any specific ethnicity or skin tone.
I present as very pale, very light-skinned, and if I use the white emoji, I feel like I'm betraying the part of myself that's Filipino.
He's betraying his Filipino side. And instead of saying hello, I say Guten Tag, just to be funny, just to be a little bit amusing. Am I betraying my Scottish side? Because I am a quarter Scottish. My Scottish side, I don't know, might be offended by that. Oh my God. These people are obsessed with race. They're obsessed. This is the crazy thing. So I've had a theory for a long time that the left, like leftist white people specifically, but I think leftist people of like all different races, but white people specifically, they feel a kind of racial bias naturally Maybe they hate black people. Maybe they've got, I don't know, some kind of like fetish or something weird going on. Something where they look at the different races very differently and they feel guilty about it, right? They feel like they're not supposed to, or somehow they're supposed to elevate certain races and whatever the left is telling them to do that week. And so they really buy into this stuff, and they think if conservatives aren't recognizing that there is some kind of inequity among the races, right? There's inequality between the races. It's not that we're ourselves that we're not racist. We are racist. We're just hiding it, right? That's their perception, right? Well, you're just as racist as I am. You're just not acknowledging it. I'm acknowledging that we have more opportunities. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you don't. It depends on the person, right? I think Will Smith's kids got a lot more opportunities than I ever had. So it depends on the person. It's not really, race really doesn't come into play in America anymore. What comes into play is your personal attitude. Culture might come into play a little bit, but I don't think race does anymore. All right, we're going to listen to the rest of this ridiculous article in one moment. First, of course, I have to talk about my amazing sponsor. Elon Musk is again stirring the pot when he said he wants to live stream an audit of Fort Knox. Boy, would that be interesting. Did you know that the U.S. government has 261.6 million troy ounces of gold stockpiled at Fort Knox? And that gold is still valued at the 1970s era rate of $42.22 an ounce. Now, if you haven't checked lately, gold is now nearing $3,000 an ounce. According to Fortune, the Wall Street Journal, and others, a repricing of that gold could send the gold markets even higher, proving that gold is not some old, outdated asset. Now, I have known that buying gold helps protect my savings, and if you're looking to diversify like I am, well, then I want you to head over to MrReaganLikesGold.com. You'll get a free gold and silver kit from my partners over at Goldco. Goldco is a great company that I trust. You could also qualify for an up to 10% instant match in bonus silver. Not a bad deal at all. Head over to MrReaganLikesGold.com. That's MrReaganLikesGold.com.
But if I use a darker color emoji, which maybe more closely matches what I see when I look at my whole family, it's not what the world sees, and people tend to judge that.
People tend to judge that. You think people judge it because it's being talked about all the time. Nobody cares. You know, it's funny, now that Trump's in office and we've got all this Doge stuff going on and we're exploring all of this fraud that's going on in the federal government and we're trying to fix the immigration situation, stuff like that, you'd think that they would maybe focus on something else. But I guess what's going on with the left is they're kind of panicking because they're realizing that actually maybe what Donald Trump is doing isn't bad. Like his approval rating just keeps going up and up and up. And they're going, okay, how do we attack them? How do we attack them? So now they're going back to the race stuff. This is like a fundamental attack that the left uses constantly. It doesn't really work anymore, but they're obviously diving headfirst into it again.
Laura Johnson from Austin, Texas, says she used to think the yellow emoji was neutral, but then she started reading a book that made her rethink that view.
In particular, Ijeoma Oluo and her fabulous book, So You Want to Talk About Race, she made me realize that our culture tends to default to whiteness and that yellow emoji is white.
For other people, the choice depends on where the messaging is happening and who they're messaging with. Here's Jennifer Epperson from Houston. She identifies as Black.
I use the default emoji, the yellow-toned one, for professional settings, and then I use the dark brown emoji for friends and family. I just don't have the emotional capacity to unpack race relations in the professional setting.
Skin-toned emojis first rolled out in 2015, so it's been a while, but since then, a seemingly easy choice has become somewhat fraught.
It's so weird. The way that leftists talk is so annoying. I don't have the emotional capacity for to what did she say? Unpack all of that in a professional setting. You don't have the emotional capacity. You don't need emotional capacity. What are you talking about? Just say what you think, lady. I mean, whatever. She's like, basically, she's an activist privately. I've heard this before that they call it code switching. Code switching, I think they call it, right? And code switching is like they speak in coded language. So like maybe at home, like they speak ghetto or something, right? And then they go to work and they have to sound like a white person, right? So privately I can sound Black, but at work I have to sound white, right? Or I have to do my hair up in a way that I wouldn't want to do it in my private life, or wear clothes that I wouldn't want to wear. I can't wear black clothes, I have to wear white clothes. Well, the reality is that most people don't wear the same things to work as they wear at home. Most people don't speak the same way at work as they speak with their friends or their family. Now, in white world, we call that being professional. But for black people, apparently, this is a giant burden that they have to put their culture aside to go to work. We all put our culture aside to go to work. There is a certain level of professionalism that is expected. And it doesn't matter if you have pink hair or you like to shave your head or you like to wear nose rings or whatever. Whether you're black or white, typically in a corporate setting, you're not really supposed to do that kind of stuff. They let people get away with it now more now. But it's still not considered professional. So it's not, I don't know. God, jeez. Why do leftists make everything so weird and obnoxious? All right, let's listen to the rest of this.
To help us understand, we've brought in Zara Rahman. She's a writer and researcher.
She's going to help us
based in Berlin.
understand.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, Zara, you wrote an article on all of this a few years back, and I want to begin with a somewhat basic question, which is who tends to use skin-toned emojis more? What did the research that you found say?
I found that there was research to show that the lightest skin tone was actually used the least, even though white Twitter users outnumber black Twitter users 4-1.
Wow. Okay, so they brought out the skin tones, and white people were like, I'm not falling for that. Oh, that's funny.
And yeah, people, I guess in my personal research, I found that white people tended to use the yellow emoji much more than people who were visibly people of color.
We heard from people earlier opting for the yellow one to not get race involved for some people or to not maybe promote their whiteness. But it seems like there is an argument from some people against using the yellow default. And I will say, particularly curious about this because I am a frequent user of the Bart Simpson yellow.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. I mean, if we look at The Simpsons, because I think The Simpsons does kind of influence a lot of people's use of the yellow emoji. On The Simpsons, there were yellow people, and there were brown people, and there were black people. So I think for many people, The Simpsons yellow signifies white, even if it's actually not.
I hadn't actually thought of that. Yeah, that's interesting.
So, and I think I think one of the callers also mentioned this. There is this default to thinking about whiteness as almost raceless in many ways. So the reason that I find this particularly interesting is because people are confronted with having to make their race explicit, which I mean, I completely hear. Some people are just exhausted of having to do that. Many people of color have to do that every day and are confronted with their race every day. But for many white people, they've been able to, let's say, ignore it, or whether that's subconsciously or consciously, their whole lives.
No. You can all ignore it. Everyone can ignore it. The idea that we have to explicitly talk about our race or expose our race or talk about our race or whatever, whatever it is, show people that we are of a particular race or culture or something like that. No, nobody has to do that ever. I once heard some Asian girl say something like, people ask me what I am. Right? What are you? Right? And she thought this was really dehumanizing. Not who are you or where are you from or where's your family from, but what are you? But people ask me that stuff all the time. Like if I go anywhere in the world, I lived in Indonesia for a year, just this last year, and people were always asking me that, right? Because there were people from all over Europe, there were people from all over Asia. I knew people from Saudi Arabia. I met people from everywhere, right? From Northern Africa. I met people from everywhere. And everybody would always ask, where are you from? Where's your family from? And a lot of people would say, well, what are you? Genetically, what they're talking about. It's not that big of a deal. These leftists, this is the weird thing, you guys. Like we kind of live in a different world than leftists. Leftists live in this world where they're always trying to navigate what exactly the right thing to do is. They're still living in that 1990s psychological era of political correctness, right? Political correctness on the left is still like a thing. And if you don't try to follow that every day, the new important thing, maybe you're a little racist. I don't know. Let's keep listening.
Zara, it does feel like there's not necessarily one clear-cut answer for everyone. In some of the Twitter responses, even I heard from people like their emoji use could be different depending on the season. I have 2 children whose skin color is not the same. I don't know that these are particularly easy questions for people to wrestle with, which is maybe candidly why sometimes I've just opted for the yellow. So how do you recommend that people handle these choices?
Oh, no, I mean, I completely agree with you that there's no clear cut answer. People that I spoke to, for example, mixed race people or white passing people of color in particular, really struggle because, as one of the callers mentioned, not wanting to kind of ignore their white privilege, but not wanting to deny the fact that they are people of color. Yeah, I think context matters hugely. Who you are, what kind of context you're writing in, or where you're using it. The interesting thing about my work has been that I've had many white people read that article and then as a result start to use the white emoji as a way of acknowledging that they know that they're white.
That is Zara Rahman. She's a writer and researcher based in Berlin. Thanks for joining us.
Oh my God.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we all know we're white. Okay, if you're white, you definitely know you're white. You don't have to post an emoji to let everybody know, by the way, guys, I know I'm white. They're so obsessed with this white privilege thing, these guys. Anyway, guys, I just want to get a little bit of an insight into how the left thinks. Now, here's my take on it real quick. You can use the yellow emoji. If you're white, if you're black, if you're Asian, whatever, use the yellow emoji. Nobody cares, right? It is neutral. If you use the yellow emoji and you're white, you're not hiding your white privilege because, by the way, you don't really have white privilege, okay? White privilege is the privilege to acknowledge that you are the most hated race on the planet. That's the privilege that we enjoy here in White World. Ooh, I should make that a show, White World. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to White World. Oh, my God. That would be scandalous, and you know how much I love scandal. Gavin Newsom might try to outlaw my show. I have to take him to court. So I was talking the other day to somebody, and it occurred to me that there are certain cultures that I think have major, major problems, right? Like in Europe, in like London, you've got this Muslim culture. I mean, I wouldn't call it specifically, well, yeah, it's a Muslim culture from different countries, various countries. A lot of them are from Pakistan. Most of them, I would say, are from Pakistan, but they're from a lot of different countries. But they make up this Muslim culture over there in the UK. And a lot of them are viciously hateful of white people. Not all of them. Obviously, some of them are normal people that you would have the same kind of values as regular people in England. But what I realize is that there's a lot of people in Europe and in America, Canada, South Africa, Australia, the UK, places like this, where we have a certain set of ethics that is drawn from the Christian tradition. And we believe, for whatever reason, that all cultures have these same values, right? Like you shouldn't be racist. But a lot of countries, a lot of cultures, they don't have this same set of values. They have totally different values. So they come to the UK in these mass numbers, and they're never taught that you shouldn't be racist. In fact, they're taught you very well should be racist. That's part of their culture. It's like a critical part of their culture. So they come to England, or Scotland, or Wales, or Ireland, and their whole thought is, these white people are the enemy. These are my enemies. I need to destroy them in any way I can. I can pretend to like them, but really I hate them because they're the enemy, because they're not Muslim. They're not like me. And English people are just like, oh, I just got these Muslim neighbors. They're amazing. And you know what the truth is? Sometimes they are amazing. I have some Muslim friends who are fantastic people. But in the UK, it's obviously a problem where there are some Muslims over there who really are racist and they hate you if you're white. And the same thing is true in America in black culture. Now, when I was growing up, there was two kinds of black culture, right? There was like the good church-going, traditional black family. They'd have a barbecue on the weekend. They'd go to church. And you still get people like that for sure, But there was a second kind of culture, which was like hip-hop culture. I don't know if you guys remember gangster rap. That was a big, big thing in like the 90s. And I feel like the hip-hop culture won out. And that was so sad to me. Because, there's such a long tradition of good Christian, black men and women in this country who, black Americans, to me, that being a black American wasn't necessarily a culture because, you could decide what you want to do with your life. But now I think it's just become, I never see that church-going, wholesome black family anymore. I wish I saw more of it. Mostly in the media, I just see the hip hop culture, the hood culture. And that's awful. And I think we need to fix it. And I think the main reason that has won is because we had this problem where we couldn't say that culture's bad. That's a bad culture. That culture needs to be fixed. It's sick. Okay? It needs to be healed. It needs to be changed, or it needs to be eradicated. If we had condemned that culture and we had said that's bad, but we never did. And the reason we never did is because we associate culture with race so closely that we felt like if we say a culture's bad, we're saying a race is bad. And I've thought for a long time we need to be able to normalize this thought that saying a culture is bad or a culture is corrupt or sick or something, that's not a problem, that's not racism. It's not the same thing as racism. Because the way you act isn't dependent on your race, right? You can, if you're black, you can be an American and enjoy any kind of American culture. If you're white and you're an American, you can enjoy any kind of American culture that you want. Hell, you can study abroad, or you can travel and you can enjoy any other kind of culture. You can embrace any culture that you want in the world. There's no reason for somebody not to adopt a culture that they just admire and they enjoy, right? So that is a choice. You don't get to choose your race, but you get to choose your culture. But because we have this idea that race and culture are the same thing. If you say something bad about a culture, you're saying something bad about the race that we associate with that culture. And so you're not allowed to say it. You're not allowed to say anything bad about any culture at all. They can say bad things about white people, but we can't even say anything bad about any culture that's not associated with whiteness. But let me say something quickly about culture. Antifa, terrible culture. That whole culture, the radical left, terrible culture. Like I was talking about in Britain, so some of these cultures that are coming in and they hate white people and they want to destroy white people and Christians. Terrible culture. The hood culture in America, terrible culture. That should be fixed or ended or something. When I was growing up, I've mentioned this before on the show. I had a friend, black girl, and she told me that she spent a lot of time with white friends. She had white friends, and they were really smart and they liked to study and do well in school. And she studied and she did well in school. Well, the black people that she knew would mock her for studying. They would mock her for speaking well. They said like she the way she talked white. To me, this kind of hood culture where they demonize you for being smart or educated or speaking well, this is only going to hurt black people. If you're black, you should look at this hood culture and go, this is a disease. This is a problem for my people. White people are so terrified of being called racist. I would say I'm probably the only person I know in the world. I'm the only person I know, probably the only white person I know that would say this. But I can talk to black people and they'll be like, yeah, you make a good point, Black people will admit it. White people would just be like, I don't want to touch that. Get away from me with that, But to me, it's like, if there's a problem, you need to acknowledge the problem and then you can fix the problem. But we are not even allowed to acknowledge this stuff because we're so terrified of being called a racist that we don't even want to use the yellow emoji because NPR says you're not acknowledging your white privilege. And the reality is that NPR is a diseased culture. And that is the truth. Man, I hope NPR dies when they get defunded. Anyway, that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Remember to like and subscribe and to share with your friends because I'm trying to blow this channel up. And I can't seem to get enough views. But anyway, help me out there. And remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's just they know so much. That is not so. Good night.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.